back in the building. It's your boy, King to the L to the baby. I drop that knowledge on your dome all day, baby. I do not but drop knowledge. Got the skills to pick views. AKA Young Johnny, AKA Buzzhead Fred. It's your boy again in the building. You feel me? Gonna drop this another hot video. And I'm gonna show you something, man. Relative to this, you got to understand about the information. This is I don't care what nobody tells you. This is estate planning, and this is all about critical thinking and critical learning. It's about learning and adapting and paying attention to understanding what you can do. Understanding your powers in your mind. Look inside yourself and understand knowledge of self, because that is your greatest asset in life. Understand that. So, we're going to get into this info, because you know your boy do it like no other. You see what I'm saying? Your boy King L to the Bay. So, let me stop the music and let's get into it, right? So, I want you to start. I went over some things, but let me see where I want to start off at. I want to put you into an understanding of how things work, right? As it relates to all of this information, I'm trying to. So, what I want to tell you is this. About standard of living. Nobody can put you into a standard of living that you do not enjoy. Nobody can put you into a standard of living that you do not agree with. And I want you to understand this, right? This is a critical thinking exercise while I go through this. But I want to talk about and start off of understanding some of the definitions and critical thinking that you need to look at as it relates to this information, right? And we're going to talk about the stuff in relationship to the Social Security Department and what you need to understand. Anytime you do a contract, it's a constructive trust. Now, this is the Social Security Manual, right? This is the Social Security Manual. Keep this in mind right up here, family. This is the POMS, right? You need a Program Operation Manual System. And it's going to talk to you about trust. And it's going to talk to you about things in relationship to the trust, because it is a trust relationship. When you set up a Social Security account, it's a credit card, it is a trust relationship. And you have to build this trust relationship that you need for everybody to understand your position and who is the principal, you the head and not the tail in this relationship. So let's go on here and let's break this down. Now, Program Operation Manual System. This is the Social Security Administration System, as you can see, and it talks about the SI 00. This is enumerated. This is the enumeration code associated with this portion, and it says information on trust include trust established prior to January 1st, 2000. Trust established with assets of third parties and trust not subject to section of this E of the Social Security Act. So let's go here, right? Let's go here. I want to click onto that, and we're going to come back to that a little later, because you need to know what that is. Okay, you need to understand what that is. So we'll come back to that, family. Let's go. So it says, introduction of trust. A trust is a legal arrangement involving property and ownership interests. Property held in trust may or may not be considered a resource for SSI purposes. Let me say this again. A trust is a legal arrangement involving property. I told y'all everything is property when you're dealing with trust. And ownership interest. I told you everything is about ownership. Forget that own nothing and control everything. No, what it is own everything and control it all. Understanding your status of ownership that makes you exemplified. Because 9/10 of the law is possession, and the other one is trust. 1/10 is trust. So let's go. Property held in trust may or may not be considered a resource for the SSI purposes. The general rule concerning resources apply when evaluating the resource status of the property held in trust. This is very powerful right here. Y'all got to pay attention. The general rules concerning resources apply when evaluating the resource status of the property held in trust. The general rule concerning resources apply when evaluating the resource status of property held in trust. That is very... You understand what that's saying? Y'all have to understand when evaluating. Who is doing the evaluation of the resource of the property to the concern the most? Is this the principal? Is this the most important aspect of the trust or the property interest in relationship to whatever these two mergers of foreign relations is interacting? Do y'all understand foreign relations? Come on, let's go. Foreign relations. What it means. Come on, let's go. A definition of foreign relations. Now, foreign relations used with plural verbs that dealing in relationship between nations. Foreign relations is the management of relationships and dealings between two countries. Any result of foreign policy dealings and decisions can be considered foreign relations. Any result of foreign policies dealings and decisions can be considered foreign relations. So, when we're talking about original jurisdiction, as all of this stuff apply, y'all got to understand trust. A foreign trust as it relates to foreign relations, as it relates to what you're trying to do. I told you this is a critical thinking assignment. Let's stop the games and let's get to the money bag, baby. Okay, applicability of policy. Generally, these rules, instructions apply to trust, not subject to the trust position provisions in section 13E of the Social Security Act, which we evaluate using instructions and this do this, right? However, trusts that meet the requirements SI must also meet the requirement of this section. Use these instructions to evaluate the following types of trusts. Trusts established prior to January 2000 that contain assets of an individual. This includes trusts established before January 1st, 2000 that contain assets of an individual, any of the which were transferred before January 1st, 2000. If the trust was established prior to this date, but no assets of the individual were transferred to the trust prior to January 1st. See this. They tell you what to do, right? So y'all got to go through here and go through here. I don't got time in the video, but I want you to stop and pause. Understand what we're doing here. Understand what we're doing here. Okay, if the trust was established prior to his, okay, I've read that already. Trusts that contain assets of third parties. See, trust of third parties. This is where it get interesting. Y'all gotta understand how this stuff works. It says established before, right, January 2000, that contain assets of third parties. Established on or after January the 1st, that contain only assets of third party or portions of the commingling trust. Attributable to assets as assets of third parties. I want y'all to understand this. Indian Gaming Regulatory Act, trust established by the Indian tribes that meet the criteria. Trust established on this contain a supplemental security income. So supplemental security income, SSI, application recipient or spouse, or the portion of commingled trust attributable to assets of an SSI applicant, receipt, or spouse must be evaluated under SI. So we got to look up this term evaluated, right? Let's look it up. When something is evaluated. I want you to look at it. It's evaluated. It's evaluated. Form an idea of the amount, number, or value of assets. Okay? So, they evaluating this. Who's going to do the evaluation into relationship which the property has value? This is what they doing to evaluate. Y'all think they looking at it now. You got to put a value on it. You determine if the property is valuable or not. If they accept it and they start using it for benefit, they in possession of it. Man, listen, let's go. Trusts are often complex legal arrangements involving state law, tribal law, and legal principles whose evaluation may require input from the agency counsel. So I told you about the law of agency. Therefore, these instructions may only be sufficient for you to recognize that an issue is present that needs referral to the regional office, the RO, for possible referral to the regional chief counsel, the RCC. When doubt, submit your questions or issue via VHelp. And then it just talk about a glossary of trust. I'm not going to go over everything. Revoke, right? Special or supplemental needs trust. So you can have a special trust dealing with special property and special things, right? And they try to evaluate, but you can set your own principle and guidelines to any trust that you want to, you know. A trust principle corpus, and break it all down. It says policies for account that may or may not be in trust. So conservatorship account, patient's trust account. You know, it just break down a lot of stuff. Token trust. It break down a lot of things in relationship to what's going on. So you guys got to go through this. I'm not going to go through every part of it, but it's going, because this video will be too long, and I'm trying to keep these videos relatively short. So as we go back to the UCCs, I want you to understand this stuff as it relates to the construction and uniform commercial codes to promote its purposes and policies and the public applicability of supplemental principles of law. I want you to understand applicability. It got a period and a comma. That means that start another applicability supplemental principle of law, right? I want you to understand this, because y'all need to understand they talking about applicable laws that's being supplemented as the principle of law. Y'all got to understand what is the principles of law as it relates to this information, right? Principle of law means what? Means y'all got to understand principles of law. The general principles of law are basic rules whose content is very general or abstract, sometimes reducible to a maxim or a simple concept. Unlike other types of rules, such are enacted law or agreements. Generally, principles of law have not been cited according to the formal sources of law. So, when we talk about the general principle or special principle or special rule or the rules, so when you go to the revised code, right, they call it general. You go to the general, these codes are general, or they say they're permanent and general. So you will come under a general jurisdiction, right? You can't, if you don't know how to make a special appearance and preserve your right of how you appearing, you will appear in a general sense in accordance to the general principles of law. And I go and I'm gonna break this down in part 2, and we'll get into that. International law, general principles of law, international law, and we'll get into that, and we'll talk about the customary law as it relates to the supplemental law, right, family? So as you go down here, this is the definitions I'm breaking down, but I want y'all to understand these rules. The principles of law and equity including the law merchant. So the law merchant can be one of the principles of law, because it's including the law merchant and law relative to capacity to contract, principal and agent, right? These are all general principles: estoppels, fraud, misrepresentation, duress, coercion, mistake, bankruptcy, and other validating or invalidating causes supplement their provision. Cause, right? We want to say cause supplement their provisions. So what are you going to do when you're talking about supplementing, invalidating cause supplementing their provisions? So let's go here. Corrections of defects in instruments or proceedings. Certain errors, defects, and omissions may be corrected. When an error, omission, or defect prescribed occurs in an instrument or proceeding which requires to be made a matter of record, a person, a party, or body corporate, I want you to look at that, or person intending to take income, undertaking, right? Intending and undertaking to become a body corporate, having or claiming an interest in correction of the error, omission, or defect, may file a petition in the Court of Common Pleas setting forth the particular errors, defects, and omissions complained of, asking an order for its correction. So we talking about birth certificates, anything that you feel that need to be validated on a record. I told you, you do not have to be subjected to any one condition of living. These people respect that. You have to understand this information as it relates to you going forward and moving in this, right? So anytime you're dealing in contracts, understand you're creating a constructive trust. So I'm going to stop this video and I'm going to probably do part 2 so you can see the rest of it. Peace and love, family.